Hello everybody. Today we're going to demonstrate how to take your current nolting system and add our new Quiltmagine computerized system to it. We'll try it step by step and hopefully this will help answer some of those questions. Now here are some of the parts that you'll receive when you receive your Quiltmagine. The first item here is the carriage itself with the motor plate inserted already in it, and some of the bracketry, axles, and wiring that we'll be using throughout this video. These will be some of the tools that will be required. You will need a Phillips screwdriver, some Allen wrenches, 1/8, 5/32, 9/64, a 3/8 nut driver, a couple more Allen wrenches, a 1/2 inch wrench, and that will pretty much get everything done that we're going to need to do. The first step of the process is to get the machine off the frame. So what you want to do is to remove the Allen screw here in the end, take out your pin, remove the roller carefully, and set it off to the side. We have a detailed video of how to actually do this on our website also. Okay. Take the cover plate off your electrical. You will see two little spade bits here. Just remove them. Your cover plate will come off. Unhook your chain cord from underneath. The machine will be plugged in here. It'll come back out through the top, of course. And then in the very back there's a ground wire. This is where we'll use an 1/8 inch Allen wrench. Just remove that. Pull your cords out from underneath there so they're completely free, and just leave that lay there for then. Unhook your encoder, and the chain track will need to be unclipped. You can either use a screwdriver tip and get it wedged in there to help pry it out if it's very tight. Now as you roll the machine off, as it rolls off, the encoder will drop down on the side here. Grab that and hang on to it as you move the machine, as you do not want to break that item. Now that we've removed the machine, the next step is to take the carriage off, or cross track. The easiest way we found is to basically take your rails loose using a 3/8 nut driver and an 1/8 inch Allen wrench. So just go ahead and remove your bolts and nuts here. And after they're loose, you can actually slide one rail down a little bit, and your other rail, just enough to get that carriage to slide free. So now the carriage is actually loose and we can pick it off of here. Before we do that, we'll need to remove the encoder as you'll be using it on your new carriage. What you'll need for that is a 1/2 inch wrench. There's a nut right inside here. Just loosen that. And the 1/16 inch Allen wrench to take this wheel off of your post here. Loosen it. That'll come free. Set it off to the side for right now. There'll be a nut and a washer here on your encoder. Save those as well and set those to the side for a minute. We'll be using those in a little bit. The next step is to get the machine turned over so you can get to your axles. What we're going to do next is remove these two axles and replace them with the ones that came with your Quiltmagine kit. So a 5/32 Allen wrench, just back out the 4 screws. And pull the axle off. If it sticks a little bit, you may just have to pop it a little bit with your hand, and the rubber gasket and everything will come off. This will be included with your Quiltmagine kit as well. Our next step is to reinstall the axles that were sent with the Quiltmagine. They will come with a small gasket pre-cut already and 2 longer Allen screws, and put those in the rear holes. There'll be 2 sets. You'll see here, put them on the inside of the machine, as the bracketry will be placed on this other set of holes, which we'll show in a second. And just snug your bolts down just where they start to get tight. That way we can adjust the angle of that axle here in a little bit. And do the same thing on the rear. We now have both axles placed back on the machine, and now we're going to put on the brackets that will hold your belt. We're going to use the outer set of holes, and what that means is we want the bracket to set outside far enough so nothing interferes with it. You'll receive these shoulder bolt type Allen screws, and they have an 1/8 inch wrench that you'll use. And tighten these down tight. You also want to make sure that you place the belt driven side, which is going to be here to here on the front, okay? On the encoder side of the machine, not the chain track side of the machine. We'll make sure we use the same corresponding holes. And also you'll notice that I have the belt clamp. I put it toward the front up here or toward the back, whichever's more convenient for you. If you do most of your work for the front, it's easier to get a hold of up here to loosen and tighten your belt. If you do some stuff from the back, you can put it back here. Just make sure when you flip the bracket that it's still on this side of the machine. So now we want to reinstall the new Quiltmagine carriage onto the frame. The machine is pretty much ready, so it'll come over here in a little bit. So go ahead and set your Quiltmagine here. Your power box, of course, goes to the back side where your chain track was, and we'll hook that up in a minute. I have reinstalled the rails. You will take the existing rails off your first carriage and just put them back onto the carriage you were sent with the Quiltmagine on it, the same way, 1/8 inch Allen screw and a 3/8 nut driver. Put them back on, make sure they're tight. Normally when we send it, we have your belts installed for you. This is the one that does the machine, and you can kind of see where it goes in right through there, okay? The one on the machine, the cogs face upward, okay? So you can see them rolling across there nice and smooth. And on the table, they go just the opposite. So when you see it lay on the tabletop, the cogs are facing down. In order to do this, the easiest way to do this is honestly to tip the Quiltmagine up to start with, so you can see what you're doing here, okay? So now it's a little bit easier to see where this belt's going to go. So I could just fish it through this side, tip it up and grab it from this side, so it's right here, and bring it back down through. So now you have one side up through, and just run it straight down beside your wheel there, and you can grab it from the back side. So it kind of look like this from the back. So now it rolls very nice and smoothly through there, and you're ready to go. So the belts are installed now. The next step, which is kind of crucial at this moment, before you put the rails back in place, you want to get this encoder on while you can still work in this area. So we're going to do the exact same thing. You can just bring it up to here. Actually works a little better if you do it from the bottom, actually. So we'll just slip that encoder into the bracket. There we go. Now on the underneath side, this is why you want to do this beforehand, so that you can actually get to this. Once it's on the rails, you can't get your hand in there. So we'll just reassign, put the washer and the nut back on here. Use your 1/2-inch wrench and tighten her back up again. And reinstall your wheel. I have found that when you put this wheel back on, give yourself some space between the wheel and the flat part of the angle here, so it has some room to move in there. Tighten it back up. With your Allen wrench. And then it's ready to be set back down. And now we're ready to reinstall our rails. Stand the rails back up and fish them through your wheels. Line up the corresponding holes in the rails again. Put her all back together, tighten them down, and then we'll proceed with putting the machine back on. Now your belt will come already inside the clip that it goes on the table. So this is the fixed side. So we'll just slide it on and keep it fairly in line with your Quiltmagine line, which you'll see a lot better once you get the whole belt strung out. On the other end is your releasing end. So just take the belt and start it through there. And this is a cogged wheel inside here, so it's grabbing those cogs on the belt and pulling it through. Snug it up, and then just tighten with this side. So now the belt's tight, it's running fairly straight. We're going to try to keep it in as straight as line as we can. The next step is to start to get your electrical ready. Just take the cover off the new box on your Quiltmagine carriage. It'll be a little bit different than your other one. And these are just 3 30-seconds Allen wrenches here, one in each corner, and just let the cover lay there for a second, okay? Now I have a spare one here to kind of wanted to show you how the bottom actually looks on this. It would sit on the carriage like this, but this is where this will snap on to the bottom here and then run up through the hole to come up inside here to do all your wiring. So you kind of get an idea. That just rejoins that so that belt keeps from dragging. So now I've run my wires up inside the box and I'm going to clip my chain on there. You might have to work at this a little bit. It will clip on and now we're in good shape there, okay? So the next thing we'll do is I'm going to set the machine on now and we'll start to run all of our wiring here. So now I started the machine on. I put my first axles in there. Guide your encoder into the track along with your rear axle. Push the machine forward. You can clip it back in place now. And we'll plug in the encoder and our electrical. Electrical cord will come down here and through the side of the box. Now run the machine cord through your side hole here, and you'll have a double plug here. Just use the corresponding end. There's no way to get it wrong. There's only plug in one way. So this way, you'll see the kind of the half moon effect on top. So we'll want that plug. Join those two together. And the other one coming from the table is the same one, same way. You can see the half moon and the half moon. and plug those together. You have your other ground wire. We're going to put it right back here in the ground box for you, right there where that screw is. So we'll put the two ground wires together, back to the back of your box, and tighten them down. Alrighty. Now we're going to take our two spade ends, I call them, and plug them into our box. Now these do have a correct way of going. What I always do is I plug them in and I test it before I put everything back together to make sure it turns on the machine separately and the Quiltmagine separately. If it doesn't, all you have to do is take them and switch them around and you'll have it correct. So now our wiring is complete. We'll just put our cover back in place. Put your two little Allen screws back in the corners of the box, and we're ready to go. So now we want to attach the belt to the machine. The fixed bracket is in back. Use a 3/16 Allen wrench back here. And bring your belt up. That's through the machine already. And you don't need very much showing, just enough to catch that thing. It will hold it. It has little cogs inside it that catches the belt. And now we'll go to the front of the machine on our adjustable end and just once again feed the belt through. And if you have a lot of excess belt, you can trim just a little bit of it off so you don't have to have quite so much hanging here. We tend to make sure you have enough for any machine you might get. So snug that one up, same way. Tighten her down, and you're good to go. And one of the last pieces left to do yet is just plug your encoder in so that it reads back here. We'll get this wire down out of the way so it doesn't catch, and you are set to go. The Quiltmagine will plug in here, and you're all set. Our next step is to remove the faceplate off your stitch regulator. I'm using a 5/64 Allen wrench. There'll be 4 little screws, and 1 in each corner. And just pull it to the side and just let it rest there. The next thing you want to do is take out the light bulb, lay it to the side, and we'll be removing the bolts that hold the faceplate on the machine itself. There'll be 5 screws that hold this head on. 2 will be up in the upper corner here, 1 in the face of the head itself, and there's 2. That's why we took the light bulb out. There's 2 that are right down here. Take those out and hang on to the handles if you're doing this by yourself. Grab your bracket, and if you pull the head gently apart, one screw to loosen a little bit here. You can actually slip the bracket down around the plug right there so it goes down there nice and easily for you. And then we'll put her all back together. On the Pro Series machine, after you remove this front cover, I actually just moved the light switch over to the opposite side of the head. And that's just undoing the nut. Bring it over here. There's a little plug here. Just pop it out of place. Put it through here and just re-thread her back on. The reason we do that is so we can run the wires that will run the machine, that'll start the machine, use the single stitch functionality. So we use that same corresponding hole and run your cable through this hole. Bring it through there a little bit so you can work. Now on the board, if you look at the board, you will see on this side the words start, ground, SS, which stands for single stitch, skip 1 to a second ground. The corresponding wires for your Quiltmagine, how it wires into the board, is use the red one Irregardless of the color of the wire in your start, sometimes they're red, a lot of times they will be. The red on the Quiltmagine goes to start. The white one will go to the ground. And the yellow is your single stitch. So they match on this particular board, so you kind of get that idea. But so they would just, there are little tiny screws, you back them out, slip the wire in, tighten them together, tug on them to make sure they stayed in place. And then of course the last one is a ground wire, which goes with the corresponding ground wire there. After that's all done, reestablish, put your plate back on the front, put your 4 screws back in, and we're ready to continue. Now we'll install the tablet holder itself. Just put it through your bracket, tighten the knob up, of course. And we'll be good to go right there. It'll hold your tablet in place. You'll have the wire that, if you have a charging unit for your tablet, you can run that wire up here also. And as long as the USB that actually will plug into the side of the tablet itself.